Are you ready?
I have to share this with you guys because I found this incredibly funny. So, trying to finish up reading the testimony on James Cron, that this is the cross-examination. Doug Mulder is questioning his good old buddy friend, James Cron. And they've gotten to the point where they've just discussed there's what they're calling coincidental prints on the exit route, the window in the garage where the intruder left. There's fingerprints, okay? So keep that in mind. These fingerprints were lifted. There was 5 lifts, but there was 2 separate prints, so they lifted it multiple times. They just had Officer Frosch, whom Darlie had said was close to the size of the intruder. Earlier in the testimony, Greg Davis has Frosch.
Well, the thing with Detective Chris Frosch is that he was a big guy. And, Darlie had to admit, that Chris Frosch was a big guy, but the person that she described was not as big as him. I'd have to go back to her testimony on that.
Walk through the window. And Doug Mulder points out, the windowsill they had always said was undisturbed. There was dust, like fresh fallen snow, is what Mr. Cron said.
Right. But I'm going to explain. So you have to look past the tomfoolery of a Darlie support source.
Hold on. Okay, so he says that the dust on the windowsill was like fresh fallen snow. No tracks were left in it when the intruder, per se, left. So Doug Mulder brings that up to him again, and he says, later on in the testimony when Doug Mulder is cross-examining him, and he mentions, Mr. Officer Frosch stepped through that windowsill, and remember that fresh fallen snow on that windowsill. That fresh fallen snow was undisturbed. Did you see that, Mr. Cron? And Mr. Cron says, well, I was just being descriptive of the windowsill. Did you see, sir, that he did not touch that fresh fallen snow on that windowsill? And Cron says, I did notice that. I was watching his feet. And Doug Mulder then says, what about, you were watching his feet. What about his hands? Did you notice where he touched that window at? No, I did not see that. I was only watching his feet. And that's when he mentions the fresh fallen snow that was not disturbed. So these coincidental prints, he's talking about them here, and he says, he's talking about how Frosch was able to make his determination in 20 or 30 minutes.
Frosch didn't make the determination in 20 or 30 minutes. Cron made a determination in 20 or 30 minutes.
So he's saying that he typically did not interview the suspects. That was not part of his standard operating procedures. He would just go and evaluate crime scenes and give his expert opinion. I use that word expert so loosely.
You would, because he was the one that showed the process that your sister may or may not have used 100% to commit the crime that she committed. See, he didn't say, well, there's no intruder because there's just no dust on this window, and that's it. Slam dunk. That's not what he said. That's one of the factors that he observed as he was examining the scene. You would expect to see, it's not necessarily, have to be disturbed or undisturbed for an intruder to go in and out of there. That doesn't make or break the deal just because that dust isn't disturbed. And even if it was disturbed, he could say, well, look, this is disturbed right here. It looks like somebody crawled in and out of it. There might be, how was it disturbed is the question. All right, but that was one of the observations that James Cron made about the window entry or exit. The dust, the mulch, the gate being hard to open, the motion sensors. Those are several different factors that they looked at as far as entry over that fence and into that window. It wasn't like that was the only reason that there was no intruders because of that. But it was one of them. It was one of them. Well, that's one of the things you'll bring up when you're investigating the scene. How does the window look? Is there any debris on it? Is it broken? Is there any hairs in the screen? Is there any fingerprints around there? Right? Now, those fingerprints they lifted 5 times. I don't know the results on those, but I do know that there is testimony. Well, not testimony, but there was word that Devin and Damon used to take that screen off and go in and out to get themselves popsicles. That was in the freezer right there. And there's a video out there of Darren who goes easily in and out that window to prove that you don't have to touch the windowsill to get in and out. Darren stepped right in, stepped right out. Of course, he didn't have a cage in his way. He didn't have a built cat play area in his way. It wasn't dark. It was a home that he knew. He wasn't freaking out. But when Darren went in and out of that window, he did not touch the windowsill or the screen or the window itself. But when Darren goes in and out that window, if you see that footage again, where Darren's showing us you can get easy in and out that window, just realize this. A big part of that window wasn't there. Almost 4 inches of it's gone. So you don't have to touch the top of it. Frost did. He's a big guy.
Okay, but anyways, I digress. We move on. He does not interview suspects. I'm going to make myself smaller so we can see this. But he says it's not your job to interview the witnesses to a particular event. Is that right? And he says it is not his job. And then further down he says, of course, and he made his opinion, and that opinion was made in about 20 or 30 minutes of the time that you got there. And he says, yes, my initial comment to them was that, look, to me, there was no intruder here. Of course, I did stay longer. And
now, he worked that scene up until November of that year. He had kept going back to the scene. Now, if we just take a look at exactly what he said, let's break it down. Okay, because a lot of supporters say, oh, he blamed Darlie within 20 minutes. No. He didn't never blame Darlie. He didn't blame Darlie at all. It says right here, my initial comment to them was that it looks to me like there was no intruder here. And there were several reasons why it didn't look that way to him. He could have been wrong, right? But he gave a professional opinion based on what he saw. And to this day, none of his theories, none of what James Cron said can be disputed. The serrated knife, the fiber, the footprints leading away to the sink. There's a lot of different reasons that he felt like there was no intruder there. It wasn't just the mulch in the yard.
Found things to confirm my opinion. One of those things to confirm your opinion was the prints? ?
Of course, I did stay there longer, and I found things to confirm my opinion. So there's a plethora of different things that made James Cron feel like there wasn't a intruder in that house that night. And then as other investigators from other fields of, like FBI, other CSI, other law enforcement agencies, other detectives, when they took a look at things, they felt like there was not an intruder as well. Wasn't just James Cron. She hates James Cron. She will tell you that James Cron was not an expert. He was just this and that. Yes, he was. But she'll also tell you that Richard Prater is a private investigator. See my friend, look right at the camera and say, he's a private investigator. I mean, she even looks devious.
And obviously, Cronus confused the prince. No, that wasn't. No, that would be. But you are not. Let me put the next. You are not the type of guy to say, I've already made up my mind. Don't confuse me with the facts, are you?
That means, could he take a look at things in a different ways and come up with a different conclusion? Is he set in stone when he says, well, there was no dust on that window, so that means that there was no intruder that came in and out of this house? And Cron says, no, that's not the type of person I am. That means he looks at everything. Okay, now you said the first thing you to do would be to take photographs. Okay, watch this. Watch. I know what she's gonna say.
Point to Mr. Mulder. Thank you, sir. And James Cron says no. Okay, then now you see, you said the first thing to do would be to take photographs. They go on from there. He talks about that he instructed them to take photographs. They did a crappy job taking photographs.
I like how the supporters go on about the type of cameras used, the quality of the photographs. It was just their photography was just fucking shitty. But when they want to show you something on the scene, they use the same photography that was used in court to get their point across about some evidence. They can use the photography.
The photographs weren't numbered. There wasn't a contact list. He didn't take photos of the entire
Well, let her out now because they didn't number those photos. Let her out. Who cares what she did to Devin and Damon?
room, only portions of the room. This is so freaking hilarious to me because this is his buddy.
How could anything about this be hilarious to you? Anything.
James Cron is Doug Mulder's buddy, and he's making.
James Cron is not that he's Doug Mulder's buddy. It's that, James Cron had been on 23,000 crime scenes in his 40-year span, but she goes into his statistics. He had 4,000 crime scenes with bodies. So that means that, in the area of Texas, as he was, investigating these crimes, he was also on the stand. And he would run into the same attorneys, especially high profile cases. It'd be the same attorneys that, they've been on different cases together before because it's an area of his workforce. It's not good buddy. It's just they knew each other for that long. She tries to make it look like they're buddy. So if that was his good buddy, Cromwell should have thrown it the way that Mulder wanted it to go, that his client was innocent, right? Right?
Making him sound like nothing more than a freaking kindergartner putting ink on your finger and putting it on a piece of paper. Basically, that's what James Cron was.
That's all she wants you to think. She has to minimize his experience. She has to look up James Cron. Look him up. He was the commander of the crime scene section. He studied enough crime scenes, And see, let's say he goes into a crime scene, right? And he comes up with a theory. But his theory doesn't fit what other law enforcement people are seeing when they look at the crime scene. They could take or leave his opinion. She has to minimize him. She's got to minimize him.
Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
I don't know what's hilarious at all about this.
I have to share this with you guys because I found this incredibly funny. So, trying to finish up reading the testimony on James Cron that this is the cross-examination. Doug Mulder is questioning his good old buddy friend James Cron.
His good
And
old
we've gotten
buddy
to the
friend. Now,
point-
and I like it when the supporters help make our case for us. Now they're saying that they went quick rush to judgment. That she had a speedy trial. They were just looking to pin it on somebody because it happened. It was election time. Blah blah blah. They just wanted to win. Well, Doug Mulder and Greg Davis and Richard Mosty and all them good old boys that work down in the southern part or the northern part of Texas. They all knew each other because they were in the court system together. So she tries to make it seem here like James Cron and Doug Mulder are good friends. Doug Mulder wants the win. It's his reputation. It's his career. He's got to get the win. All right. So if these two are good buddies, like she's trying to make it seem like they're chum, don't you think they'd work together a little bit harder to frame Darlie? Doug Mulder is giving her a defense. And he had some good questions for Cron. But anywho,